A quiet invitation to another world tonight. We step into a hidden corridor of history, an echoing passage that winds behind crimson screens and lacquered doors. A realm where power whispered in hushed tones, and where the price of access was paid with more than silver or silk. We are traveling to Imperial China, a court of candlelit halls, incense smoke curling beneath jade-inlaid ceilings, where emperors dreamed of immortality and the moonlight pooled across silent courtyards. In this gentle journey, you need not hurry. Let the day's concerns loosen, like knots in a silken sash. And when our path is complete, you may discover that the echoes of their world settle like soft dust upon your own thoughts, guiding you toward peaceful sleep. Segment 1. An 8-year-old boy at the knife's edge. Imagine you are 8 years old, small hands still etched with yesterday's games in the village dirt. Dawn lifts its cool peaches and cream glow over the rice paddies, and a messenger tall, austere, arrives with letters sealed in cinnabar wax. Your family is poor, the season's uncertain. Yet this scroll bears promise, a stipend of grain, relief from taxes, an open door to the radiant heart of the empire. If, and only if, their second son enters palace service. Not as a page, nor as a soldier, but as one of the Zhongguan, the palace eunuchs. The journey to the capital is long but somnolent, each river bend stitched with lotus blossoms and carp. You are lulled by the bark roll of oars, unaware of the change awaiting you in a quiet courtyard behind clinic walls. There, an elderly surgeon, hands steady as a calligrapher painting moonlit reeds, performs the rite. Pain hums like a taut string, yet memory soon blurs at the edges as pungent mugwort smoke drifts across chilled skin. When consciousness returns, the sky feels taller, the body oddly foreign, and childhood has slipped away like a kite whose string was cut. Weeks later, your steps echo inside vermilion corridors. The palace is a city within walls, 9,999 rooms, each with its own muted secrets. Lantern light trembles against glazed roof tiles, while night watch clappers mark time with wooden knocks softer than a heartbeat. Before dawn, you rise on a narrow Kong bed, warmth from its brick hearth fading. You fold rough cotton bedding with meticulous corners, each crease a silent offering to order. A basin of cool water waits. You wash face and hands, fingers aching faintly where nerves still whisper of the past, sweeping fallen pine needles from the hall of mental cultivation, polishing bronze incense burners until your reflection swims drowsily back, carrying messages, always eyes lowered, for to gaze directly upon the imperial presence is to invite reprimand or worse. The days pass slowly, one very much like the next, the rhythm of their lives gentling the mind like water over stone, rice steam curling from kitchen vats earthy, comforting. Footfalls on polished parquet, hush, click, click that never startles. A distant chin releases languid notes, strings quivering through lacquered corridors like dragonflies skimming a pond. The smell of sandalwood, soft yet persistent, blending with faint beeswax from freshly burnished floors. These small sensations, repeated daily, become anchors, quiet markers of a life circumscribed yet strangely stable. Under a silver-bearded tutor, you learn the 8 regulations for eunuch conduct. Speak softly, walk lightly, obey promptly, record precisely, appear scarcely, harbor no ambition, bear no resentment, and forget the self entirely. Calligraphy practice fills afternoons, the brush gliding like slow rain across rice paper. Each ideograph is a doorway. You linger at the threshold of words such as Jing quietude, Ren forbearance, Yang endurance. Hour after hour, your wrist relaxes into flowing curves, mind drifting on the breath of ink. The palace, you discover, rewards those who master serenity better than speed. One evening, older eunuchs invite you to sit beneath a persimmon tree in the service courtyard. They share pressed plum cakes, a luxury stolen from banquet scraps. In low voices, they recall seasons of chrysanthemum frost, festivals glimpsed only through half-open gates, and rumors of an emperor who dreams his own death nightly. Their laughter is gentle, tinged with melancholy, yet it weaves a slender thread of belonging through your otherwise solitary tapestry. Lying awake on your Kong, you listen to the muffled murmur of palace life. Water carriers shuffling, an owl hooting from cedar rafters, the faint scent of jade bangles as a concubine passes through shadowed halls. You think of your family, the curve of your mother's shoulder as she stooped over rice shoots, the smell of garlic sizzling in sesame oil. Memories hazy, yet each recollection settles you, like a calm hand smoothing paper wrinkles. And so, the days pass slowly, one much like the next. And in that gentle sameness, the heart discovers its own quiet rhythm. In time, you will learn that within these silent halls, some eunuchs rise wielding influence from behind silken screens. Their soft words sway emperors, and their ink may rewrite the fate of dynasties. And now, we step into another part of this world, tracing the life of one such figure, a man named Zhao Gao, whose whispered commands once tilted the mighty Qin toward ruin. Segment 2, Zhao Gao, puppet master of a dying dynasty. Now we drift further along the winding paths of the imperial court, into darker corners where power wears silk gloves, and destinies turn not by sword, but by signature, not by battle cries, but by quiet counsel. Zhao Gao was a eunuch of the Qin dynasty, the first imperial dynasty of unified China. A reign forged in iron and flame, but undone by shadows. Unlike generals or kings, Zhao Gao left no battlefield monuments, no stele carved with triumphs. His was the kind of influence that moved like mist, unseen, slow, and nearly impossible to grasp, until it settled over everything. Zhao Gao was likely born into modest means, perhaps the son of a minor official or servant. Like many palace eunuchs, his early life was marked, not by opportunity, but by loss. His entry into court life, a path carved by necessity rather than design, placed him among the nameless, the many who served behind screens and below banners. Yet Zhao Gao had an unusual gift. He understood the art of invisibility, of listening more than speaking, and of making himself indispensable to those whose names shaped laws and borders. He began as a legal functionary, keeper of scrolls, draftsman of decrees. With each quiet errand, he absorbed the structure of the bureaucracy, its cadences, its blind spots, and its fatal vulnerabilities. His handwriting, it was said, was flawless, measured, and elegant, capable of forging documents, so convincing that even senior officials could not tell truth from imitation. Zhao Gao became close to the crown prince, Hahai, a young man insulated from hardship, cradled in luxury, and deeply reliant on those who whispered in his ear. As tutor and mentor, Zhao Gao instructed Hahai in legal codes and ritual forms, but also in manipulation, in the use of appearances, in the management of perception. To Hahai, Zhao Gao was more than a eunuch. He was an interpreter of omens, a steward of secrets, a gentle architect of fate. In the year 210 BCE, Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, died while traveling through the empire. His death could have plunged the dynasty into sudden disarray, but Zhao Gao, ever prepared, had other plans. Alongside Chancellor Li Si, he concealed the emperor's death and forged an imperial decree, one that declared the crown prince Fusu unfit for succession, and instead named Hahai Zhao Gao's pupil as heir to the dragon throne. Fusu, obedient and dutiful, followed the forged order and took his own life. The way was cleared. A new emperor rose, and Zhao Gao's influence deepened like dye in water. Under Emperor Hahainao Qin Ershi, Zhao Gao became chief eunuch, then chancellor, and eventually the true voice behind the throne. His rise was not marked by proclamations, but by absences. Ministers who questioned him vanished. Generals who grew too popular were recalled. He deployed a delicate tyranny, not through armies, but through silence, confusion, and erasure. Court scribes recorded odd rituals, like his infamous deer-horse test, wherein Zhao Gao brought a deer before the court and insisted was a horse. Those who agreed lived. Those who objected disappeared. It was not truly about the deer, but about loyalty, about seeing what Zhao Gao needed you to see, about surrendering your own clarity to survive within his. But even shadows cannot rule forever. As unrest rippled through the empire, rebellions bloomed like poppies from the cracks in the roads the Qin had once paved. In 207 BCE, Zhao Gao orchestrated the assassination of his own pupil, Emperor Qin Ershi. He then placed another puppet on the throne, but by now, the threads had unraveled. Armies surged, cities fell. In the end, Zhao Gao was killed by those who once bowed to him. His name was purged from official scrolls. His likeness struck from murals. But his legacy endured, not in monuments or memory, but in the cautionary tone of court whispers for centuries to come. Zhao Gao's life is difficult to place. Not villain, not martyr, not quite sovereign, yet never merely a servant. He was a man who learned to wield silence, whose power was never declared, but always felt. His story, like so many in the imperial court, teaches not only of ambition, but of the quiet price of proximity to emperors, to secrets, and to the ever-turning wheel of dynasties. Now, let us turn away from the men who lived, and toward the places where they rest. Beneath the palace's deep under stone courtyards lie tombs that whisper of ritual, of belief, and of forgotten roles. In the next part of our journey, we explore the buried secrets beneath the Forbidden City, relics of eunuchs long past, their identities preserved in jade and in silence. Segment 3. Buried secrets beneath the Forbidden City, beneath the gleaming rooftops of the Forbidden City, under courtyards once swept by crimson silk slippers and corridors echoing with whispered rituals. There lies another realm, one without light, but not without story. Tonight, we lower our lanterns into the quiet earth and wander through the resting places of men who were both central and invisible, revered and erased. These are the tombs of the imperial eunuchs, forgotten by the surface, but never fully silent. While imperial tombs were carved into hillsides or sprawled across sacred valleys, the burial sites of eunuchs were far more humble, yet still deeply symbolic, hidden outside the main city walls, in remote plots or temple-adjacent groves. Their graves were modest in scale, but richly inscribed with names, ranks, and prayers. Some were buried with miniature scrolls of silk, filled with poems or copied sutras. Others had stone tablets listing their service years, from chamber duties to imperial errands. And a few, very few, were interred in secret mausoleums endowed by the emperors they had served. These places, wrapped in earth and incense, were both tribute and boundary. Eunuchs, after all, were not expected to return in the cycle of life as others might. Their roles were complete, their names softly sealed in soil. In recent decades, a handful of tombs, buried beneath centuries of growth and dust, have been uncovered on the outskirts of Beijing. One such tomb belonged to Wang Shao, a high-ranking eunuch of the Ming dynasty. His resting place included a worn lacquered mirror, a pair of embroidered shoes never walked in, a scroll tube made of bamboo, its paper long decayed, but its silence still intact. The mirror especially intrigued archaeologists, for a eunuch had no need to shave, no reason to preen for lovers or family. Perhaps it was symbolic, a metaphor for reflection without self, a tool for seeing one's form, but never truly one's place. And then there was Zhao Zichun, another eunuch whose burial chamber, discovered in 2011, bore images of celestial beasts, dragons in the north, vermilion birds in the south, signifying protection in the afterlife. Though once considered lesser, his tomb bore the same directional alignment as imperial family members. A gesture, perhaps, of gratitude or guilt. These objects, simple yet sacred, form a quiet mosaic of men who gave everything, including their bodies, to a dynasty that both needed and ignored them. In Chinese cosmology, lineage was central to spiritual peace. To be remembered by your descendants, to be honored on ancestral altars, ensured a soul's safe passage through the veils of the afterlife. Eunuchs, however, had no heirs, no children to offer incense, no wives to mourn their passing. This troubled many deeply. Some wrote poems pleading for remembrance. Others donated wealth to temples in hopes that monks would chant in their name long after the court had forgotten them. They relied on symbolic acts, commissioning sculptures of immortals, requesting burial near sacred trees, or leaving behind tiny jade tablets etched with Buddhist mantras. In these quiet relics, one senses both reverence and anxiety, the desire not for glory, but for peace, not to be remembered with fanfare, only not to be forgotten entirely. We do not often think of power as something buried, but here, in these tombs of palace eunuchs, we glimpse power's residue, not gilded, but grounded. Their stories, so often footnotes, remain in the scent of dried incense ash, in the faded silk wrapping a mirror, and in the spaces between remembered names. If you listen closely, even the silence of stone carries a voice. Now, let us return to the surface, but not to the noise of the street, nor the bustle of common halls. Instead, we ascend into the golden hush of the emperor's quarters. There, we will explore the ritual and isolation that shaped the most powerful man in the empire, and how even he, cloaked in silk and surrounded by splendor, lived under a burden few could understand. Next, we enter the world of the Emperor's Silence. Segment 4, The Emperor's Silence. Ritual, isolation, and power above the tombs, above the courtyards, and above even the golden tiles of the outer halls, lies a world defined not by space, but by distance. Tonight, we ascend gently into the heart of the Forbidden City, not the busy courts, not the banquet rooms, but into the private stillness of the Emperor's inner world. We do not rush. We do not knock. For here, silence is not absence. It is law. Imagine you wake just before dawn to the faint rustle of silk bedding. The stone floors are cold. Outside, a chorus of cicadas hums in the dark. You are the Emperor. Your first words have already been written for you. A servant, perhaps a eunuch, enters wordlessly, holding your schedule carved in red ink. You will greet ancestors. You will read ancient texts. You will meet ministers. But you will not make casual conversation. You will not step outside the walls. And you will rarely speak without ritual. As the Son of Heaven, the Emperor was not simply a man. He was the cosmic axis, the human embodiment of harmony between earth and sky. This was not a comforting burden. It was an exacting one. His body was sacred. His words, scripture. Even his meals were inspected, tasted first by servants, observed by guards, then carried to him in perfect silence. A typical day might begin with the morning audience ceremony, held in the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Ministers lined up in silence, robes trailing across the polished stone. A eunuch would announce names in steady rhythm, like a bell tolling. You, the Emperor, would sit on an elevated platform. Above you painted dragons on lacquered beams. Below hundreds of gazes, but not a single one direct. No one met your eyes, not even your own sons. The rest of the day passed in a slow, controlled ballet. You visited the ancestral tablets. You offered incense to heaven. You wrote edicts, not letters. You listened. You ate alone. You read alone. Even when surrounded by concubines and advisors, you remained essentially alone. Outside, the world moved differently. Merchants haggled in markets. Monks recited sutras at distant monasteries. Peasants worked fields thick with rice. But inside the Forbidden City, the emperor's life was a sequence of symbolic actions, a rhythm unbroken by spontaneity. And while eunuchs could whisper, scheme, and navigate the inner court, the emperor remained restrained. By tradition as tightly as any silken sash, his power was unmatched. But it was ceremonial, filtered through layers of ritual and interpreted by others. A eunuch might deliver his words. A scribe might shape them. And others' advisors, consorts, generals, might respond in ways he could not control. He ruled, yes, but often in silence. In truth, few emperors were happy. Many feared assassination. Some died from overwork. Others retreated into poetry and calligraphy, finding brief solace in brushstrokes where their voice could flow freely. Some, like the Wanli Emperor, refused to leave their chambers for years, communicating only through scrolls passed between trusted eunuchs. They withdrew not out of cruelty, but exhaustion. To be treated as divine is to be watched without being seen. At night, you might lie in a vast chamber lit by red lanterns, curtains fluttering in the soft breeze. The weight of the world presses gently on your chest. You hear the padded footsteps of guards changing shifts, the faint murmur of palace priests chanting under their breath. And perhaps, just outside your door, a eunuch sleeps lightly, waiting in case you call. But you won't, not tonight. There is no one to call. You close your eyes and drift into dreams shaped by stars and ancient rites. Even asleep, your role does not end. You are the emperor. The world turns around your silence. And so we leave this cloistered world, a place of hush and hierarchy, of silk screens and written commands, where men gave up families to guard a dynasty, where tombs spoke louder than voices, and where power, at its very peak, came not with freedom, but with profound, resounding stillness. Conclusion: rest well, far from the palace walls. Tonight, we wandered the halls of an empire built on silence and ceremony. We followed the soft footsteps of those who gave everything for order, the eunuchs, the forgotten, the emperor himself. Their world was not restful, but yours can be. Let the echoes of jade bells fade. Let the red walls disappear behind the mist. And as the palace sleeps, so can you. Rest well and dream of quieter times.